So I have spent a little bit of time talking about Charles Milliard, who was in studio yesterday, and the question today was about, you know what, it's not resonating with Quebecers still. He is third in personal popularity, though the Liberals, are getting closer, I guess, to the CAQ. There's not been a real shift, is what I'm trying to say, since Charles Milliard took over. And that's working, I think, against the Liberals. So I asked our audience today, our listeners, what does he need to do differently to kind of, resonate? So he's talking about going into the regions where, of course, the Liberals continue to do very poorly. But he's been talking about since the get-go. And his line was, I want to read the direct quote, "You can't like someone you don't know."
Oh, that's a good one.
That's what he said.
That's a good one, yes. Well, he has, of course, to get people to know him better. I think also he needs to clarify some of his positions, like his vision. He presented this week his plan for French. He's walking a very, very fine line here, trying to satisfy everybody. But when you try and to satisfy everybody, you end up not satisfying anyone.
Right.
So it's a very fine line to walk, especially for a Liberal leader, because you have to satisfy on one side your core base, non-Francophone base, and not make sure you keep your team united around your position, and at the same time try and reach out to Quebecers outside of the Greater Montreal area, Francophones, where actually they are at a very low. So they still need to do a lot of work to reconnect with Francophones outside of Montreal. I was there yesterday. He was giving a conference at Corim on his vision of Quebec and international relations under a potential Liberal government, and to me it just lacked depth. It wasn't deep enough. Like, the reflection about his vision was not deep enough.
Too general.
Yeah, he criticized the current government's lack of ambition, but when he was asked as to what he would do different, he couldn't really come up with clear ideas, clear proposals as to how it would be different under a Liberal government ran by Charles Milliard. So it's also about presenting ideas that will inspire voters in the next election.
So let me ask you, you've been around politics, from the inside as well, and this is something I was wondering. If you look at what Charles Milliard has done and the fact that he hasn't really kind of, broken through, is this Charles Milliard saying to the team around him, look, I'm going to do this my way, I don't think we should do this? Or is this the team saying, hey, look, you've never been in politics before, we'll tell you what to do?
I think he knows what he's doing still. He's had a long career. He's been involved in politics too, back under Robert Bourassa in the 1990s. So he was not an elected official per se, but he still was around politics for a very long time, even when he worked for national public relations, for instance, as vice president. And so I think he's a very intelligent man. He knows what he's doing. He's surrounding himself with people that probably fill the gaps that he has on certain aspects in terms of policy, maybe, but he needs to go deeper. And my guess here is that he might be waiting until the election, because right now people are not really focused on the next election yet. People are going to start looking into it much more in August when the campaign is officially launched. So maybe he's waiting until the campaign officially starts to come up with his big ideas, his bold ideas for Quebec, if ever he were to win the next election.
Is that what you think? Is that the idea here?
That could be a strategy. You don't want to unveil your program too early, your proposals too early into the election, because what is going to be new that you have to present in the next election when officially you're on the trail?
Okay, so are we reading too much then? You're suggesting by saying, you know what, the polls are just they're not helping the Liberals, it's just too early.
It's okay. To me, it is still very early, but I'm going to say this: he needs to get out of petty fights with the PQ. What he did this week, threatening Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon to sue him for defamation regarding the declarations that Saint-Pierre Plamondon did just a week ago regarding the ties that he's trying to draw between the Liberal Party, its funding, and organized crime. To me, threatening to sue was a major strategic mistake, because damn if you do, damn if you don't. If you do sue, then you're going to keep the story alive for months into the next election. And if you don't sue, then it's going to give your opponents an opportunity to criticize you, saying, oh, you didn't sue because basically you don't have grounds, you don't have proofs to basically prove that you're not tied to organized crime. So to me, that was a major mistake that he did.
So you and I feel very differently about this. We were just chatting before. To me, if you let Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon get away with this, right? The idea that he's tying the Liberals and you as leader of the Liberals to organized crime, and you say nothing about that? How is that a win?
No, he could have said something without threatening to sue. So he could have
like what?
Oh, brush it off. Just dismiss it as being ridiculous and unfounded, unbased, and move on to something else. Because in the end, if you threaten to sue, then you have to act on, and whether you do or not sue, it's a lose-lose situation for the Liberals. I would just, you brush it off, and in just a few hours, in just a few days from now, people would have forgotten about it. But now we're still, it's been a week now, and we're still talking about this.
People would have forgotten about it, except Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, I'm sure, would have taken every opportunity to put it back in the news every single day that they said nothing.
Well, he doesn't have to, because Milliard right now gave him that opportunity.
Yeah.
He's the one keeping the story alive.
But what he should, I think, we talked about this earlier on, I think what he should have done is simply said, you know what, I sent a mise en demeure, you didn't respond. I am now going to follow through, and we will sue because you're alleging we have somehow organized crime tied to the Quebec.
So then you might get into the next election, the beginning of the campaign, and the court proceedings will start, and you will have to comment that every single
Quebec.
day.
Court proceedings are not going to start anytime soon.
But still, to me, like he should have just ignored it or brush it off at least. Say it's ridiculous, it's unfounded, and move on to something else rather than in public relations we talk about it's something we study in university. It's called the Streisand effect. So about 20 years ago, Barbara Streisand sued a photographer who was actually documenting the erosion of the California coastline. And one of these photos showed the luxurious estate of Barbara Streisand. Until she sued, only 6 people downloaded the photo. 2 of them were her attorneys. A month later, more than 400,000 people had visited the website of that photographer to see the estate of Barbara Streisand. So sometimes when you don't want people to notice something, it's better to keep it under the radar.
And that ties in how to this lawsuit?
To me, it's a Streisand effect for Charles Milliard, because he brought awareness, he shed light on Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon's declarations.
Okay.
This is going to be, by the way, my column tomorrow morning in the Montreal Gazette. So if you want to read more about it.
Yeah, I do, because I just don't understand.
I'm sure you'll be convinced after you read
it. The light here was shone by Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, not by Charles Milliard. That is my contention.
Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon did the declaration. To me, it's a crass declaration, to be honest. It's dirty politics.
Yeah.
And I would have just, if I were Milliard, I would have just dismissed it. Laughed it off, say it's ridiculous, it's unfounded, he has no proof of what he's saying, and just move on to something else.
Okay, that's fine. Didn't happen, but that's fine. I guess he could have done that. Maybe different people
we wouldn't be
said
talking
he made
about
a mistake.
had he done that, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
So the other, and we haven't talked a lot about this today, but the Liberals provincially keep appointing new people to run, making announcements, which is funny because on the one hand, they're appointing or they're announcing new people who will run, yet the CAQ are losing ministers every other day.
Absolutely.
So the latest is Matthew Lacombe, the culture minister. Before him was Jean Boulet a couple of days ago. I think we did the count. 33 CAQ members since the original 79 have now left the party. You had a rather interesting point, which was they're lining up at the exits, but the problem is no one's lining up at the entrance.
40% of the CQ's current MNAs are not running again. Now, people could say it's normal at the end of a political cycle after 8 years in power. Some of them have been elected for longer than that, but prior to the CQ coming to power. So it's normal for them to think about their future and what they want to do next. Now, that being said, we haven't seen any announcements officially of new candidates on the CQ's part. Apparently, Christine Fréchette is going to be announcing a first one on Saturday in Brome-Missisquoi.
Right.
But let's wait and see what it is going to be. But I'm pretty sure, recruitment of new candidates was very difficult under François Legault because the party was guaranteed to be completely wiped off the electoral map. So Christine Fréchette arrived as leader and the recruitment started there. So they're quite late compared to their opponents in terms of recruiting new candidates. It's also, I would say, an occasion for renewal for Christine Fréchette to bring in new, fresh faces and hopefully star candidates that will revamp her party.
And do you think the idea of the ones leaving now, like Jean Boulet, like Mathieu Lacombe, is this about Christine Fréchette or is this about the CAQ? I
think it's about the fatigue of having been ministers for 8 years. It's normal. It's the prospect also of not coming back to power. You've been a minister for 8 years. You don't want to go for the next 4 years on the backbenches of the opposition, especially if you're not the official opposition. So the prospect of losing the next election, of losing power, is of course certainly something that they have considered in the decision they made. But still, I think it's normal if you've been in those positions which are highly demanding. For a human being, I've seen it myself in different positions. I've accompanied many ministers, both on the federal stage, provincial stage. It's very harsh harsh on the human being that is behind the elected official. So I think it's normal for them to seek new challenges.
I prefer your answer, but you know what? Nobody wants to sit in opposition after
as well.
having been a minister
but
for 8 years.
It's not just one factor to be considered. It's many. It's an ensemble of factors that comes together, and at some point you make that decision. Okay. But I want to commend Mathieu Lacombe, though. You know, Mathieu Lacombe, I've known him personally since the age of 17. He was the one when I took my card of as a member of the ADQ at the time. The CQ didn't exist. It was the ADQ in 2017. He was president of the ADQ youth in the region of Lanaudière, my home region, and he was the first one to call me to invite me to their Congrès Jeune, and he brought me in politics. He's part of the ones who brought me to be involved in politics, and afterwards it led to me getting my first job in politics, and I wouldn't be here today at this microphone had it not been for people like Mathieu Lacombe. And I want to commend him because I think both as family minister and as culture minister, I'm trying to be as objective as I can be, of course, but I think he did a terrific job with both portfolios.
But Raph, he's a separatist.
Oh, well, I mean, you can have, you know, you're not always 100% perfect in life.
Okay. You don't think that had anything to do with him leaving that comment in the National Assembly when he was asked, how would you vote in a referendum? He said yes, after Jean Boulet had said no? No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jean Boulet, it's clear, like, he comes from a family who is very federalist.
Yeah.
Now, the CQ is a very broad coalition of people. There's lots of sovereignists in there. There's lots of federalists. They both came from either the Liberal Party or the PQ at the time. So it's normal to have people of all walks of life and all different points of view.
You want to take a guess why he quit? He's someone you know. Do you think it was just enough? Ça suffit for Mathieu Lacombe?
Well, he said, and it's a reason, it's an explanation we often hear in politics. Yeah. He says he wants to focus on his family. Okay. Now, his two sons are getting at a critical age of their teenagers, so he wants to spend more time with them and be more present at home. I think that's highly defendable.
Sure he does. All right, Raph, we didn't even get to talk about Antoine Dion Charest.
Antoine Dion Charest, okay. So candidate in Verdun, that's something that was supposed to be announced months ago under Pablo Rodriguez. They had to postpone the announcement because of the Brownie Gate at the time, so it's now official. He's running in Verdun.
Okay, interesting. All right, Raph, thank you.
Close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Gives Canada the lift off.
Available on iHeartRadio.